Our top story for this half hour: Iran has pledged to advance its missile program with more determination despite the fresh U.S. sanctions on Iranian companies and individuals. The foreign ministry says the new sanctions have no legal or moral legitimacy.
List a new sanctions list by the U.S. Treasury under the pretext of the Iranian missile defense program. It's an attempt to give concessions to powerhouses inside and outside the U.S. that for decades have been affecting the U.S. foreign policy, have taken the foreign policy of the U.S. hostage, actually. And now, because of the failure of their Iranophobia policy and the restoration of Iranian rights, and Iran enjoying part of the monetary resources, its own economic resources, now they're agitated.
Jabari Ansari said that Iran's missiles are defensive and deterrent and not designed to carry nuclear warheads. He noted that the U.S. has been selling tens of billions of dollars of weaponry to countries in the region. Jabari Ansari added that the U.S. weapons have been used against people in Palestine, Lebanon, and recently in Yemen. The foreign ministry spokesman said the structure of anti-Iran sanctions has collapsed and that it's impossible to build up a new sanctions regime against Iran.
Just a day after the nuclear deal between Iran and the P5+1 group of countries came into effect, ending a series of unilateral and multilateral sanctions against Tehran over its nuclear energy program, the U.S. Treasury Department announced new anti-Iran sanctions, this time targeting the country's ballistic missile program. Based on the new sanctions, 11 individuals and entities are blacklisted and barred from the U.S. banking system. Washington claims that Iran's missile program is a threat to global security. Tehran categorically denies this, saying its missile program is solely defensive. Speaking at the White House, U.S. President Barack Obama defended the move, calling it a necessary step to check what he described as Iran's destabilizing influence in the Middle East and the world.
Iran's recent missile test, for example, was a violation of its international obligations. And as a result, the United States is imposing sanctions on individuals and companies working to advance Iran's ballistic missile program.
Many analysts describe such measures as an attempt by the U.S. administration to appease Israel, Saudi Arabia, and Obama's Republican rivals in the Congress who have been opposing the use of nuclear diplomacy with Iran.
It's not an international sanctions, and at the same time, it looks like the United States of America in here is trying to just appease Obama himself, trying to appease the Zionist lobby and the Saudi Arabia lobby.
Iran has repeatedly said that U.S. officials are dishonest and unreliable because they breach promises made earlier. Tehran has said that over the past 3 decades, the U.S. has used various issues as a pretext to impose unjust economic sanctions against the country. Speaking to reporters in Tehran on Sunday, the Iranian president stressed Tehran's caution in its future dealings with Washington, adding that Tehran preserved the right to respond to any breaches of the nuclear deal by the United States.
Our people have witnessed numerous instances of injustice and breaching of promises by the U.S. Therefore, we're not going to trust a country like the U.S. just because of the JCPOA. If the Americans do something in violation of the deal, there are certain mechanisms within the deal itself, and we will follow up the issue through these very mechanisms. If the Americans try to take such actions, Iran will respond in kind.
The upcoming weeks and months will be an acid test of how determined the U.S. authorities are in remaining loyal to their commitments in the nuclear deal. However, Washington's bleak past record is a sign of the difficulties lying ahead in the tortuous path of diplomacy.